Thor Ragnarok comes out this week in North America, and at the time of this recording, it is still the best reviewed movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, according to Rotten Tomatoes. Not just the best reviewed Thor movie, the best reviewed MCU movie, period. Better than Iron Man, the Avengers, the movies you typically think of when you think of the best of the MCU. Which is interesting, especially when you consider that the last Thor movie was the worst reviewed of the Marvel films. But it's not just according to Rotten Tomatoes. Both of the previous Thor movies have often been considered to be the lesser entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, some even going as far as to say that they're the worst films in the series. But are they? Are they really the worst of the MCU? With Ragnarok coming out this week, I decided to go back and take a look once again at Thor and Thor the Dark World and see how they hold up. Now, before we go on, let me just say right out the gate that I like both Thor and Thor the Dark World. I generally don't think that Marvel makes out-and-out bad movies. Bad TV shows is another thing. There are some that I like more than others, obviously. Some I think are just good, some I think are great, but overall, there are none that I would consider flat out terrible. Having said that, I think it is fair to say that the Thor movies are the least popular in the MCU. Ask any of your friends what their favorite movie is, and they won't say Thor. Ask what their least favorite is, and chances are it's gonna be a Thor movie. Hell, in the wake of Ragnarok's announcement, I heard a lot of people saying that they don't generally like the Thor films, but this one has them interested. And that's a valid opinion to have, but are the Thor movies really that bad? Well, I certainly don't think the first Thor movie is, and to be quite honest with you, I friggin' love the original Thor. I think a lot of that has to do with the choice of director, Sir Kenneth Branagh. He's known for his big dramatic films, and that shines through wonderfully in the first Thor movie. Everything in this film just feels big and epic and important. From the camera angles, to the use of slow motion, to the way dialogue is delivered, to the great use of close-ups, to me, this feels exactly how a Thor movie should feel. Branagh is known for his Shakespeare movies. He's directed 4 films based on the works of William Shakespeare, including an unabridged 4-hour version of Hamlet. 4 hours. That's the type of guy you need to put Thor and the Gods of Asgard on the big screen. Someone to make them feel as dramatic and larger than life as possible. And it worked. Now, admittedly, this did lead to some overacting and scene chewing from just about everybody.
You're unworthy! Father.
But it fits here because it invokes the grand theatrical drama of a Shakespeare play, something that, if we're being honest, has always been a part of Thor. I mean, in the comics, Thor always speaks in a different font from everybody else. It's more of an old-timey font that, to me, just screams Shakespeare, or at least that time period. Is the film perfect? Well, no. Certainly the story could have been worked on a lot more. It's more of a basic origin story. It doesn't really add anything new to the formula. Some of the special effects don't hold up, which is actually surprising to me, but the biggest surprise I found watching this movie again was the depiction of Loki. He's not the flamboyant trickster god of the later films. He's more of a sad, angry, jealous man lusting for power. Sure, he still lies and deceives people, but it's played more straight and more for emotional drama rather than it is for pure mischief mayhem. It fits this movie, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't gel with the rest of Tom Hiddleston's portrayals of the character. But all the flaws in this movie are saved by the direction of Branagh. He gives Marvel's most epic and powerful hero the epic and powerful movie he deserves. I mean, just look at the way Thor flips this table. That's awesome. It's a shame Kenneth Branagh only did the one film. Imagine what he could have done with one of the bigger Thor stories like the Eternal Saga or the God Butcher, or hell, imagine Kenneth Branagh doing Ragnarok. Instead, for Thor the Dark World, we got Alan Taylor, who seemed like a good choice at first. He directed a whole bunch of Game of Thrones episodes, so he should know how to do grand epic fantasy, the kind that Thor requires, right? Well, kinda. Thor the Dark World does have good big moments, but they don't feel as big or as epic as they did in the first movie. This one feels much more like a traditional Marvel movie, shot and edited in a way that's very similar to everything else in the series. Everything about this movie just sort of feels generic, like you can swap in Captain America or Iron Man and nothing would seem out of place. The story also isn't as strong as the first movie. It seems like they added a lot to the action sequences to bump up the runtime and make up for the weak character development. This especially hurts the main villain of the movie, Malekith. Marvel sort of has a bad reputation for underdeveloping their villains in their films, but this seems to be the worst of the bunch. You get the sense that Malekith and the Dark Elves and their search for the Ether was supposed to be the main focus of the story, but somewhere along the line, somebody high up at Marvel decided that there needs to be more Loki in this movie and more connections to the Infinity Stone saga. But that's not to say the movie is a total loss. Like I said earlier, I do like the film. The action is very good and very easy to follow. The jokes and funny bits all land and land well. And Loki now feels like the Loki we all know and love. It's formulaic in all the worst ways, but the Marvel formula does work. It can take a lesser movie and make it at least somewhat interesting and at bare minimum entertaining. Thor: The Dark World may be towards the bottom of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but a bad Marvel movie is kind of like a bad Pixar movie. It may not be as great as the high points, but it's certainly leaps and bounds ahead of anything the competitors are doing. As for the first Thor movie, I rank that towards the top. Maybe not top 5, but definitely number 6. It's still one of the most visually unique and exciting films in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And while Thor Ragnarok seems to be going in a very different direction, it remembers that Thor needs to be big and grand and epic and visually different from the rest of the Avengers. But that's just what I think. What do you guys think about the 2 previous Thor movies? Do you like them? Do you think they're the lesser of the Marvel movies? Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet. Of course, new videos every Tuesday and Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern is Wulff Den Live, so make sure you subscribe to see all of that. Click the bell icon so that you get notifications for when we go live or when we post whatever the hell we post. Like this video and share it with a friend who likes the Thor movies and feels like his voice and opinion isn't shared with anybody else. I'm with you, buddy. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.